Good evening, everyone, and how are you doing? Hope you are doing well. Hope everyone is beautifully fine, wonderfully fine, magnificently fine on this wonderful Monday evening as we begin to wind down. Oh, March. Can you believe it's March 29th? I can't believe it's March 29th. This is so amazing to me. So tonight it's going to be, I would like to say, supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and hope you're all doing well. We're listening to the beautiful songs of Calabash, and now, for some reason, you are not seeing me online, but I am seeing all sorts of stuff. Let's hope everything is going well here. You're not seeing, are you seeing picture? I hope you are. Before we get into this interview, we want to make sure that everything is loading right, because I got a really special guest tonight and I don't want anything to go wrong. So we're going to take a minute here as you all come in. Let me know if you're seeing me, if you are online. Listen, there's going to be some wisdom keys tonight. I am telling you, serious wisdom knowledge is going to drop here tonight, because, it's all about history. It's Women's History Month, and we're ending Women's History Month. And you're saying you can't see me, can't see anything, black screen. Okay, give me 1 second here. I don't know what's going on or why we're having a black screen. Okay, we will see why we're having a black screen. And I don't know why we're having a black screen. Okay, we got Rosemary waiting in the back. Let me know if you can see me, folks. You can see Rosemary, but you couldn't see me. Okay, you're hearing me? Hopefully you can still see the sounds and hear the sounds of Calabash. We can see now. Can you see me now? Can you see me? I don't think you can see me yet. And you hear me. Thank you for letting me know. Rosemary's there. Okay, I see myself coming back now. Something is happening with video. I may need a new computer. Okay, there we go. We're back online. Yay! See, it's going to be a great interview. This is why it's happening. I know. Whenever you're going to have a great interview is when you have some technical challenges, but we claim victory today. Okay, Joan is saying not clear. What's not clear, Joan? Is it the sound or is it me? Is it the sound or is it the... Let me know as we fix this. Because I want, when we get Rosemary on here, it's supercalifragilisticexpialidocious that she has the best time of her life. Sarah is saying yay. Coach Carrie is saying yay. How are we doing? Okay, I think I see me. No sound is good. It's you. Oh, I am foggy. Oh boy. Alrighty then. Hold on. The video quality. Okay. We are going to change something up. We are going to change something up. Rosemary, bear with me. I tell you, we are going to another camera. Hope you enjoyed the sounds of Calabash. When I did my test today, everything was working well. But now it isn't. Don't you just love when you're live and things are happening with your cameras? But we're going to get it working. We are going to get it working. Okay. Tell me you see me now. Tell me you see me now. Please tell me you see me now. Yes? You can see and hear me? Awesome. Awesome, awesome. How is everybody doing? Are you having a good night tonight? Okay, we're starting this again. Welcome, welcome everybody. Quality not, oh, she's saying the quality is not good. You look beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, Coach Carey says yes, so I must have victory somehow. Okay, we just had to bring out the auxiliary camera. Don't we love live? And when you have to do your own production. Okay, woo. All right, here we go. Okay, people, we're starting again. Welcome to the Victory Speak Show, and I am your host, Nicole Waldron. And today, it's been fun, fun, fun. As you can see, I hope you can all see me now. You can all hear me now. I know my head might look a little cut off, but I'll work on that and fix that in a hot minute because I want to get Rosemary on here. We are in for a great, great evening. And thank you all for tuning in and for your patience. Hope you have your nice drink. You have a nice little warm candle and a throw, your notepads, and you're sharing this with your friends. This is the Victory Speak Show, and we're starting a new series tonight. And on the Victory Speak Show, it's where iron sharpens iron. That's you and me sharpening each other. And I'm your host, Nicole Waldron, your voice of victory and your mental fitness coach. And I'm on a mission to inspire you to live a life of victory, a victorious lifestyle. And now we literally have victory on the show because we fixed our technical difficulties. Now, in order to do this, we all need to cultivate that victory mindset as we mind our minds. And thank God I was minding my mind today because I might have just lost my mind with all this technical stuff. And we mind our minds by taking in what we listen to, what we say, and what we do, how we handle situations like this, like crisis. And through the many conversations as well, we can harness whether they are good, not so good, if they're funny. And in those countless inspiring conversations, guess what? We can glean from each other, we can love on each other, and we can cultivate living that victory mindset. We all have a story to tell and a story we're telling. And there's always someone that can glean from your story. So let's continue to share as I share with you the people that I've met along the way. As we say, sharing is caring. So I'm going to continue sharing on another level with this new series. It is the second interview in the Trailblazers in Our Time series. The first episode highlighted the life and times of the amazing, phenomenal event planner and community leader, Joan Pierre. Now, I really believe it's so important that we celebrate and acknowledge the leaders in our community and society now while they're here with us and not wait till they're gone. As my American friends would say, give them their flowers. And in this final Monday in Women's History Month, who better to end it with than historian and champion of history, Dr. Rosemary Sadlier. Now, let me tell you a little bit about her. There's so much to Rosemary. I'm going to condense some of it so you can glean more when she comes in. So, Dr. Rosemary Sadlier is a historian, an author, educator, and Black history expert based in Toronto, Ontario. And I'm specifying this because there may be some of you listening from around the world. And she has completed her course for her doctorate at Obhs University of Toronto. Now, here's a beautiful fact. From 1993 to 2015, she served as the volunteer president of the Ontario Black History Society, the first and only provincial heritage organization in Canada focused on African Canadian history. Rosemary has presented nationally and internationally, including to the United Nations, on the subjects of Black Canadian history, curriculum, and anti-racism. She has also researched and written about Black history and Black Canadian history. She chairs the Royal Commonwealth Society Toronto branch and has given deputations to the UN, the Senate, and City Council. She's an expert on the history of African Canadians and has been interviewed on numerous media outlets, including some like this: City TV, CBC News Network, CBC Syndicated Radio, Radio Canada International, City TV, CP24, in the US, WNED and PBS, the Toronto Star, Global Mail, National Post, Toronto Sun, Share Newspaper, Pride Newspaper, and the Caribbean Camera. And that's just to name a few. Among her publications are the Harriet Tubman and the Kids Book of Black Canadian History. She was the consultant as well and writer contributor to Black History Africa, the Caribbean, and the Americas on EMP. Her recent writing concerning Black history related matters included a monthly comment for Inside Toronto, book chapters for publications on the Ward and the Black Canadian Network Facebook site. Now, her patience and persistence has resulted in some phenomenal work across the country. And you're going to learn about some of that tonight. One of which we will discuss is one of the most recent accomplishments on Emancipation Day in Canada. I am looking forward to learning all about that. And as we wind down, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about her awards. One which I know I'm proud that she's gotten, and she is proud of, and her family, is that she has gotten the Order of Ontario and the William Peyton Hubbard Race Relations Award and the Harry Jerome Award and Planet Africa Awards, among many others. And she is also a Kentucky Colonel. That's a fun fact about Rosemary. So, without further ado, and I hope everybody is seeing and hearing well now, I am going to bring on the phenomenal, with some applause, with some wonderful applause, the wonderful, fantabulous Rosemary Sadlier. Woo!
Oh, Nicole, that was an amazing introduction. I don't even know what I can possibly say now. You've said everything.
Listen, it's all you. I just even read some of it. So that's amazing. Rosemary, thank you. And thank you for your patience. And so sorry for the technical difficulties. For everyone
I
who has
loved it. I
joined
loved
us,
it.
oh God, everybody's online. Joan is saying hi. Share love more, Gloria. Your beautiful daughter is online. Maria is online. Listen, we love you, Rose. See, we're going to just start giving you your flowers now. We love you, Rosemary. Woohoo! Sarah says, I have all her books. Coach Carrie is like, she's my mom. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. Thank you, Dr. Vibe. So thank you everyone for coming in. So Rosemary, how are you doing today?
I'm really good. Compared to this time last week, I'm even better. Yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So we're going to dig right in, give you some fun questions. So Rosemary, what brings you joy?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And, there's sort of before COVID and there's the after COVID.
Right, right.
And I would say that given right now, what brings me joy is something that's beautiful, like a beautiful sunrise, which I try to capture every day, or just seeing the birds on the lake. Today, I had an encounter with a Canada goose, which I didn't post yet, but just really finding ways to appreciate beauty, because we've been sort of deprived of being able to have those opportunities in real time with each other. Yeah, that brings me joy.
See that? You see, we have that in common. I love that because you always have these beautiful pictures on your Facebook. I'm always like trying not to steal your pictures, but you have beautiful pictures on Facebook and stuff. So, what's a fun fact about Rosemary that people don't know? I have some in my head that I've kind of discovered along the way. But what's a fun fact that our folks don't
Well,
know about?
yeah. When we were talking earlier, one of the things that we shared was that people may not realize that I used to sew my own clothes. Not all of them necessarily, but I used to find joy in doing that. And so having done that gives me a great appreciation for fashion and helps me determine when I'm looking at something if it's been constructed well, if just how the fabric will wear. And
Right.
it means a lot. I've had the opportunity to be at the African Fashion Week events and in the past, and I know what designers I would be
Mm.
wanting to support just based on my own experience in sewing. Yeah. But
And
so it's a fun fact, but it helps. It helps. Yeah.
that was really interesting to know that you do that. And it reminded me that I used to sew and I used to love embroidery. And I was just thinking, why haven't I picked up embroidery during COVID and done some of that fun stitching and making flowers? Because I can't crochet. I don't like crocheting. I don't like knitting. But yeah,
Well,
you
I think that, you know, I don't think anyone should judge themselves in any way during this past year. If I think that getting through the day sometimes is enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
Getting one thing important accomplished in a day, sometimes that's enough.
Yes.
And to, give yourself a lot more grace and a lot more forgiveness, because these are different times.
It truly is. See, I love Coach. I call your daughter Coach Carrie because that's how I met her on great old Clubhouse. It's Coach Carrie.
Well,
Yes, me
you
and
keep
Mr.
reminding me, my poor children. But there was a method to my madness. When I sewed I have 3 children, and so if I made an outfit for my girls, I would sort of make them matching or complementary, and people kind of wondered why. And one of the reasons, when you go out with your kids, it's easy if somebody disappears. Well, it's just wearing that. So it helps you find your children.
Find your children. That's really good because you only see it with twins. So somebody's putting up a fun fact here, and Sarah, that's exactly where I'm going. And Rosemary's food pictures bring me joy. See? And I was like, you love cooking. And I noticed that over this pandemic that we would see like this, for lack of a better terminology, food porn that you would put up. You would just put up all these amazing pictures of these beautiful dishes and none of us could come and taste it. Where did you get this love of food from? And cooking?
Um, I think it runs in my family, to be quite honest. I found out later in life that my grandmother my paternal grandmother was a professional cook at one point, a chef.
Right.
And I mean, there were different little things. I mean, you can cook, but there are different elements that you can add to what you're making that really can, like, pump it up a couple of notches. And I love vegetables, but I'm not a vegetarian. And I am a carnivore. Sorry, everybody. I do enjoy a pleasant steak, and I can find a way to work with. I can do fine dining, which I tried to replicate for
Yeah.
myself, and I can do everyday food too. Because
What are you
if
known
you,
for? What is that dish that you're known for?
I don't know, because I cook a lot of things, and I borrow from a lot of different genres. So right now, I don't know. I think my if I left it up to my kids, they would probably tell me chicken à l'orange, or
Come on now,
yeah.
Rose.
Well, I make it, or but I like to bake too. So it really depends.
So I am looking forward to this food fest because I'm going to bring you, Joan, Diana D'Souza. I'm just going to bring a whole bunch of you, and we are going to have a food fest.
What are
Okay,
we going to
so
make? What are you looking for?
I'm looking for everything. I'm coming to eat. I'm not coming to do anything.
Well, okay, well, so
So you
tell
see what
me.
you got to
I
say?
mean, we're
We're
having
eating
a discussion
everything.
here, right? What do you like to eat? Well, okay, yes, I made my mother. Thank you very much. My baking is amazing. Thank you, Maria. My mother was a very my mother had a cookbook that she used from the time that she was in learning to cook in school, like that kind of a cookbook.
Right,
And
right.
some of those basic foods that people were having were so delicious. One of the somebody reminded me about the donuts that my mother would make, and so I make cake type donuts on occasion. And because we're in Holy Week coming up, I hated the hot cross buns that were commercially
I
available.
know.
There's
Dry,
just,
dry,
I
dry,
just
dry.
cannot enjoy them. Never, I mean, I never learned to like them as a child. If they came out, it was like, okay, never mind.
Right.
And then as an adult, I had a hot cross bun that someone had made, a homemade one, and it was like, where has this been all my life? Like, oh my God, this is delicious. And my kids don't laugh. It works. Don't laugh until you try it. But I make them plain with no raisins or
Right,
currants. But
right.
some people prefer them that with the currants or raisins. I make them plain with nothing, just the wonderful cinnamon and
Softness.
cloves.
Yes.
Oh, and I make them sometimes with chocolate chips. They're so good.
Okay. So I'm coming. I'm loving this. I'm loving this. I'm getting so excited. I'm getting hungry already, and I haven't had dessert yet. So I feel like it's time for dinner. Yeah, we need to do like this Oprah dinner style and bring all the icons. Somebody give me the money, and we're going to organize that event, and we're
I'm
going to
there.
bring all
I'm
our
there. Like
icons, and we're going to
Nicole,
have that dinner.
what do you want? What would you want if we were getting together? What should we be cooking so I can practice if I don't know how to make it already?
Oh my God, what would you be cooking? Something with seafood.
Oh, I won't be cooking that.
Okay, you won't be cooking that. Okay,
No,
so I just have to. I have to think of. I just
I'm a
have to think of something.
carnivore. Carnivore.
Well, a
Carnivore.
good steak. I love a good steak.
Okay, I could do that.
I love a good steak. I love a good steak. I really do. I really love a good steak. I'm a steaky. Okay, okay. So speaking of dinner, if you could go to dinner with anyone, who would that be and why?
Oh, wow. Nicole, you didn't give me this question in advance. So
I didn't give you any of your questions in advance. That's the point.
that's a hard one because somebody's obviously going to be feeling like I forgot to ask them or think of them.
This is
But
about you. It's not about them.
you know who I might be. Just that there's a million people. I mean, there's so many possible ways to answer this. But when I met Barack Obama when he was here, and I
Yes.
had my picture taken with him,
Yes.
and that few minutes of connecting with him. Now, maybe I'm wrong, like Michelle's safe. She doesn't have to worry. It's all good. But I did feel that this was a man that was incredibly easy to talk to.
Mm,
And I wasn't starstruck. It wasn't coming from that space. It was coming from this is somebody who is truly listening to you, who's
yes.
making eye contact with you.
Yes.
He's got a very pleasant feel around him,
Yeah.
which I guess is what have helped him to do well in what he does. But he might be a very interesting person to speak to go out for dinner with, and just talk about life. Not any particular agenda. He just seems to me an incredibly personable person.
That would be one of my choices. And one of the reasons he's one of my choices is because he always remained focused. Like,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was excited when he was inaugurated and they gave him his flowers and everybody was clapping him up. And then the onslaught came. And
Mm-hmm.
I watched him stay focused despite what was happening. And then
Mm-hmm.
when the second election came, that was even, I don't even know which one was harder. But then he still stayed focused. And that to me is one of the things that truly amazed me about him. And I think that's one of the questions. And I think I know the answer to it, but what kept him staying focused? But that I would love to talk to him about that. Actually, on a sad note, his grandmother passed away today. I just found that out before the show. So we're sending lots of love to the Obamas and Sarah Oyango. If you're still on here, his grandmother has Oyango in her last name.
Yes, I saw that.
So you got to look into that, Sarah. That was
They're,
that
they're
was
probably. I think they're cousins. I'm sure that.
Sarah. You gotta call the family now. You gotta call the family. So what are some of the? So now we talk about Barack Obama meeting him. What was that like for you?
It was brief, obviously. Like
Yes,
there's a
I know.
million people there.
I know. Quick.
But I was one of the last people to have the opportunity to go in and shake his hand, just because of the way things worked, and they cut off the line literally
Yes.
at me, and I was preparing myself to find him um, difficult. And there are people you meet and right away, like, oh, thank God this was only
Yes.
5 seconds, because
Yes.
that was 5 seconds too long.
Yeah.
It really wasn't that way. And maybe I'm putting him up on a pedestal that he doesn't deserve to be on, but that was an impression. And I should tell you, like, maybe this is a fun fact that you don't know. Just when he was the first inauguration for Barack Obama, I had tried to organize a trip to go to Washington
Right.
to be there. And it was such a mess, and so everything happening so quickly, and getting enough people and not having enough people. And all of a sudden I had 2 bus trips and 1 plane trip, and nothing really finalized. And I realized I'm not going to Washington, because the only way I was going to be able to go is if I could go free because I had a group organized. So that worked out to my advantage because I was contacted by a national television station to
Right.
be the on-air host with others during the inauguration.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Well, here's the thing: the worst and best part of it. The night before, I had a terrible migraine. And I
Mm,
had a terrible migraine. I don't have migraines often, but I think it was stress induced. And I just felt that it was, if he made it to the podium to get sworn in
hmm
without something horrendous
Yes.
happening,
Yeah. Yeah.
and not that, I'm not talking about his policies, I'm just talking about the symbol of a Black man being the president of the United
Yeah.
States. Um, I just had this terrible headache. So by the time I got to the event and I mic'd up and took a deep breath and I'm talking and we're all talking and he starts to make his move towards the podium. He's
Yeah.
coming down the stairs and it's like, oh my God, it's going to happen. And I'm crying on national television. So I'm so glad that it was before too much social media because
Yeah. I think we were
nobody's
all
pretty.
crying. I don't
Nobody's
think there
pretty
was,
when they cry.
but
Yeah.
I think we were all crying. I think
Oh,
we were all holding our breath. We were
holding
all
my breath.
crying.
I think I held my breath his whole presidency, but that was the
Yes.
most intense moment because we know of other things that have happened, and we know, well, we know what's always beneath the surface.
As a
So
as a historian, and studying so many things around the world, and looking at the U.S. history, did you ever think we would really have a Black president?
no,
Yeah.
no.
Blue, yeah. Joan is like, I was on the mall crying. Don't feel alone. I was on the mall crying. She was wrapped up. She sent pictures because she was freezing outside. She was on the mall crying. She was
Well,
there.
I mean, I went for this. I was there for the second inauguration,
Yeah.
and I didn't have a chance to meet him there, but I was there for the second inauguration, and I had no migraine, and I didn't cry. But yeah, it was very intense because I think that as a person of African origin, having lived through so much invisibility, obscurity,
Yes.
never ever seeing yourself represented in anything, in a book, in a television commercial, in anything, and then things sort of slowly changed, and
Mhm.
and then to actually in your lifetime see, not that I'm just for the symbolic value, if there's any, but there is a value. A Black, they just had Janelle Comey. Is that
Janelle Kim is young. Yes.
she
Yes.
was the first Black
Miss
Miss
Universe.
Universe,
Yes.
and it was like, and then have a Black president in my lifetime. I never thought I would ever see those kinds of things. Hmm.
And this is why we can't stop dreaming. We can't stop dreaming. We really have to really know that change comes. It may come in increments, but change can come even though it might be painstaking and even though it might be long. Um, it can come. Sarah Yango is like, my friends and I were at the concert at the Lincoln Memorial the night before. I watched the swearing in at a historic Black church near the White House with elderly civil rights activists and military folks magic. Okay, so we need just a show on the conversations of those who were there and what your experiences were, because Sarah, this is the first time I'm finding out you went. So
Oh well,
between
Sarah's
you,
always in Washington. Are you kidding? She's a busy woman.
Sarah's everywhere. But
I
to
know.
hear, to put you, Joan, Sarah, and who God knows who else was there, that would be amazing. Just to hear the experiences and watching what is transforming. When
I
I
didn't
think,
even know I was going to be talking about Barack Obama. You see, if you had told me, no, it's okay. That's good.
I didn't even know we were going to talk about Barack
I
Obama.
didn't either.
No.
Huh,
See, this
it's
is
all
what
good.
happens. This is what when girlfriends get in a conversation, you're inspired. Anything can come out. What is some of the best advice you've ever gotten?
Hmm. Mm. My niece once told me when she was very little, just do it, Auntie. So that was interesting advice. Like, don't overthink it. Just do it.
Just do it.
And I'm thinking, oh, maybe the kid's got a point.
And you've done it. You have broken some glass ceilings. I think maybe her advice really worked for you. Just do it, because you just do it.
I do
Despite what
actually. I mean, I guess there's advantages and disadvantages to um, the experience, my own lived experience,
yeah.
and I if something's important to me, I will try to do it. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that inspires me about you. And when I speak of inspiration, I wonder I've always wondered who inspires you along the way and shaped your journey. Like, if you were to look at, okay, let's get specific, because I know there's many people that have inspired you, and I know your family inspired you because you've talked about your family inspiring you. But being Women's History Month, and it's the International Women's Month, and we're coming down to the end, are there particular women that have inspired you and shaped your journey?
Lots of them. I mean, I've been very fortunate. I'd like to say that there was one. There's not just one. I mean,
Right.
aside from my mother, who will always be that person, because, I think some people put a lot of stock in
Mhm.
professional degrees and dismiss lived experience. And I think that I was able to learn that lived experience, it can be very, very, very useful. And she had some as well. But I think there were people at my church who were,
Mhm.
sometimes you learn because of what you see and what you're encouraged to do.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
sometimes you learn because you know that that's a choice you're not going to make. Um, People at my church, there were people um, that I knew just in the course of growing up. Um, at when I was at with the OBHS, many of the women that were on the board or volunteers during, especially the earlier parts of my time there, were incredibly hardworking and dedicated, and had come from backgrounds in education and other community work. Many of them were members of the Canadian Negro Women's Association.
Mm.
So they had a vision also of community service, which was compatible with my own. So they were very helpful. And I've continued to find inspiration, um, sometimes directly and sometimes indirectly. Yeah. From different
I,
people because of what they've
I
been able
sense a
to
new
do.
book. I sense a new book, Rosemary. The women that have inspired me in history. I sense a new book. I sense a bestseller. I sense I can help you with that. I sense this. This feels
It's coming. It's
coming.
coming.
And I love your daughter. You know what? I'm going to have to bring you on, Coach Carrie. We're going to be talking. Granny of you always inspired me. Andrew Lopez is like, Toronto and Canada say, Brava, divine women leader Sadler. Keep on shining like only you can. See, we got to give you your flowers. I'm loving this, giving you your flowers. Now, one more thing about International Women's Month is that they have this theme of choose to challenge. So, it's a two-part question. What do you choose to challenge for yourself in this year or this season, this era of your life? I don't know which era you're in your life. I wonder what era you're in your life, because you're not in your early years. You're not in your early years. You're not in your baby years. Okay, but what do you choose to challenge for yourself in this season of your life?
Um, hmm. Well, um, I think that this is a point, like in a particular sense, nothing has changed. I have led, I believe, a purposeful life. I've made decisions about doing things that I think are important for me and important for the community, but mostly important for the community. And when we were talking, when we were talking a bit earlier, I guess I probably suggested that I'm going to privilege me a little bit more than maybe I have before. I think When you are involved in, when you have kids, you privilege your children. You give them, I gave them all of my attention. You
Mm.
give your family your attention. You give your community your attention, and it isn't that I'm not going to do that, but the
Right.
shift, I think I have to shift it a bit more so that I'm privileging me.
I love that. And you see, everybody's on the book thing right now. So all your fans are here. Sarah's like, we need the book about how Rosemary's efforts led to the National Black History Month observance. We're going to be talking about that today. We're going to be talking about that today, Miss Sarah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. We're going in. We're going in deep. We're going in deep today. This is good. What would you choose to challenge other women with as in this season?
I would never really, I hear the question, and I hear it with love, but
Yep.
I would not want to challenge any woman to do anything that she's not comfortable or ready to do. And I think that that's really, it's like a lot of things in life. You have to know what you want to do, and give yourself permission to do it, or find a way to do it if you can. And if you can't, that's okay too.
You know, I love
Uh,
that answer, right? I love that answer.
oh, good.
That was a really good answer. I would have, listen, if you're not writing some of this stuff down, well, you got to go back to the replay because that was good. Because it's about you basically choose you and don't do anything that you're not ready to do. Don't be I love that answer. I love that answer, especially for women, and especially in this month, and especially with the pandemic, when so many women, you know, abuse is on the rise, and women are trying to find their place and their shape. And you know, we've been told we're the strong Black woman, and being the strong woman no matter what race or you know, identity that you are. And however, it's that strength that has also kept us down, because it has allowed people to bully us in some ways, because we're so strong, and women have not taken the self-care that they need, because they always feel they have to be so strong all the time. And you just gave them permission. You just got permission from Dr. Sadlier to give yourself some self-compassion and some self-care, and don't be to rush into anything that you don't want to do. You see, I love that answer.
Absolutely.
Love it. See, Maria's like, I love that answer too. Yeah, it was a good answer. Love it.
Thank you. I love you.
So let's deep dive a little more into Rosemary, because your
Uh-oh.
family has some roots here, and I don't think people really realize. So can you give us a little bit
I'm a
of the
tree, right?
you are a Balboa tree. You are a Balboa tree that is blooming in Canada. I don't know how it is, but it's blooming in Canada, and your roots go deep. Just give the people a little bit about your roots, how far back they are in Canada, because you're not even just first generation Canadian. Come on now, you're
Wow.
deep.
I didn't always know that, to be
Hmm.
quite honest. I wasn't, I mean, it didn't seem like an issue. It didn't seem like a thing. But I realize now that I'm incredibly different than a lot of people I might interact with. Both of my parents are Black. Let me just put that out there. Um, so when I'm talking about how many generations, I'm not referring to other ethnic groups. I am talking to about African Canadians. My mother's family came into Canada probably about 1830 via the Underground Railroad, or inspired by the Underground Railroad. And my father's family came in to New Brunswick as Black loyalists in
Mm,
1783, as late loyalists, and as refugees of the War of 1812.
wow.
So actually, today I had the chance. I was doing an online international presentation yesterday, and I was unable to be there live. But today I was able to watch the intention to apologize to the um, descendants of the number 2 construction battalion.
Wow.
And
Wow.
and when Calvin Ruck wrote that book, it kind of coincided with when I was really almost about the time I was finding out that my father's roots were that much further back. I'd known Underground Railroad, but I didn't quite appreciate the whole Black Loyalist thing, because my father didn't live in New Brunswick. We didn't go to New Brunswick to visit people. There weren't people I was talking to. There weren't really family that I knew in New Brunswick. Everyone that I knew was, I thought, here. So when I saw Calvin Ruck's book, and in the meantime had connected with a cousin on my father's side in New Brunswick, I realized that just about everybody who was recruited from New Brunswick to the number 2 construction battalion was related to me. And in fact, one of the very famous photographs of the band for the number 2 construction battalion, on one side is my grandfather, who I never met. He was dead long before I was born. And on the other side is his first cousin, who was Seymour Tyler. And Seymour Tyler, his image is in the wall of the memorial wall, the wall of remembrance at Queen's Park. So it's just, I mean, these are just amazing things that I'm very proud about. But, you know, when they were going through the whole apology intention today, what I was very happy was said was that people were harmed by their treatment around the time of the whole recruitment enlistment period. And they were also harmed by how they were treated once they were part of it. They were harmed by what happened when they were in Europe doing what they were doing. And they were harmed when they came back because everybody acted like they had done nothing and they weren't anything. And I think that reverberated, because it's part of the reason that my father, aside from other family issues, never would talk about it, because Black people who came back didn't talk about their service. There was no pride. There was no reason to talk about their service, because it was almost like it never happened. And so anyway, I'm glad that it's going to happen. And it connects to me, but it connects to all of us, because if we are not going to be affirmed in our reality, when do we get affirmed? You know, yeah.
You know, I love this. You know, like, there's so many things going through my mind right now. It's not even scripted. It's not even in the questions, because you were talking about finding family and finding the history. I love history. That was my favorite topic in school, history. So
Mm-hmm.
when I discovered history, but see, just hearing you talk about it, tears were coming to my eyes. I'm trying not to tear up here, because I wonder how you felt, because I'm feeling like it's my own family. When you hear that greatness and what they did, how did you feel when you discovered all of this, Rosemary, about your family that you didn't know before?
Well, I mean, this was a number of years ago, obviously, but it was almost like, how is it that I did not know this? And it's my own family. And if it's my own family, well, I'm not the only one. There are other people,
Yes,
other descent.
yes,
But
yes,
if it's my own family and I didn't know, what about people who don't have family? How would they ever come to know that there had been this contribution? So it was further encouragement to um, keep doing what I was doing, because obviously the way things are structured, we're not supposed to know. And actually, I have the Canada Post stamp with the number 2 construction battalion
listen,
behind me.
listen. Sarah's like, thanks for pushing together number two stamp. Listen, I remembered when I was working at the Senate, and it was the only Black History Month event, the biggest Black History Month the Senate ever did. And the Canada Post staff were so good. And I said, can I get the pictures of all the stamps? And that year, we honored Senator Ann Cool, Senator Ruck, and Senator Oliver, and blew them up. but they gave me the images for the stamps, and our graphic designer put it up and she blew it up, and we had them all over. Um, and the only thing I regretted was that, the staff there said they were going to videotape everything, and
And
they
they
did.
didn't.
And thank God I had some common sense in my head. And with one of the other staff there, we took pictures. But the stamp, like when I saw the stamps, I was like so blown away. And you just walk up to it, and you just feel just something when you see your history, no matter where it comes from, and you see the pride, and you hear the stories of what they went through. And just looking at even Star Jacobs right now saying, the men from war did not talk. My father served, but too painful to talk about it, and honor them. And so the fact that you are doing this, and you have paid such attention to detail, in honoring so many people, and then to find out about your family, that I could only imagine the pride, the love, the joy, the tears. And Sarah, you're so right. Senator Ruck was an amazing gentleman.
He was. I remember meeting him. He was lovely. And when he was he's like everybody's uncle, that kind of man.
Yeah,
Very, very, um, to think when you would see him, he was very unassuming.
yeah,
And when you consider that he faced down the possibility that his house might have been torched,
mm,
I mean, he had some horrendous experiences um, prior to ever getting to do the work on the #2 construction battalion, but a lovely man. And when I saw his son talking at the event, he kind of reminded me of his dad because he kind of looks like him, but he's too tall.
yeah, yeah.
He was, it was a really lovely event. Yeah.
I would have loved to know more about
Well,
it.
it's
And
online.
so,
I'll send you.
trust me, I'm going to be watching that tonight. Probably when I can't sleep, I'm going to be watching that tonight.
Yeah.
Sarah was my main hostess, the mostess at the Senate event. The event was beautifully done. Thanks, Sarah. It was a really beautiful event, and we brought in the ambassadors. And, oh, that event was just like bar none. But I want to go back more into Rosemary. And so you find out all of this about your family, but you grew. What is that? Oh, you're
I
taking
took a
pictures.
picture. I have to record it. I was here. Unless you took one.
I'm going to take some screenshots after for sure. We're going to pose.
Okay.
We're going to strike a pose. Um, what? So you were born and raised in Toronto. What was it like growing up in Toronto as a little Rosemary? Little Rosemary. I can see you in your little dress. Little Rosemary growing up in Toronto.
I had 2 braids. um, Little Rosemary, I have to say that on one hand, everything was fine, and on the other hand, everything really wasn't fine. But
Mm,
you don't always have the words to help you express what's going on. So, for example, in my own neighborhood, I never experienced name calling or any of that kind of stuff. We were the only Black family in the neighborhood, and in that very protected area, because your home neighborhood is like a bubble. It's only when you venture out of the bubble that things start to change. So there were some changes that took place once I went to school. The only Black kid in my public school.
mm,
Then my high school, I was one of I believe there were 1,400 in total population. There were maybe 10 of us, and not all in the same grade. So I think I had one class one time with another Black student.
wow.
I never had a Black teacher until I was in grade 10. And one of the things that, you know, I'm reminded about, and I think that, we should all be thinking about, is that there's a curriculum, and then there's the interpretation of the curriculum.
Mm,
And so I had a very old teacher. One of my teachers was incredibly old. He did end up retiring before I ever graduated my high school, and everybody loved him. I loved him. He was a pleasant, gentle soul. But this pleasant, gentle soul was teaching that Black people were inferior. It was
Wow.
teaching that Black people had smaller brain capacities. Was teaching that Black people couldn't do the same thing that other people could do. And we had to, you're in the class. I have a big head. I don't know if you, not big because it's swollen, but I just happen to have a big head. It's hard for me to find a hat. And
Right.
so, I mean, this man's telling me that my head's small. It's like, okay. But he's also, but, jokes aside, how do you deal with that when you are the Black kid that they're talking about? You are being objectified in your own presence.
Yes.
And to complain because you're was going to get you nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an exercise in knowing who you are, knowing when it's futile or when it might not be futile to find a way to protest.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but when the populations shift, when there were more numbers, it helps tremendously.
Right.
And but I remember that really well.
How did that shape you? Like, what did you do? How, what did you do growing up in that situation and a teacher speaking to you like this? Like,
Well,
did
he's
you go
not
home and tell
speaking
your
to
family?
me, but I
I
mean,
mean, like, she's
oh
speaking
yeah,
to her class,
yeah,
like,
but I mean, but that was like, that's normal.
right.
Racism was normal. And so it isn't that you accepted it or that you believed it. You just knew it was going to happen. And when it did, it's like, okay, there it is. And then you have to find a way to negotiate that because there are only so many options for you or none.
But how did you negotiate that? Being a young girl, was it something that came from your parents? Like, what was
Oh,
it that allowed you,
absolutely. I mean,
like,
the
to
opportunity
navigate?
to, yeah, to talk it through with my parents. Um, if you find allies, the people who
Mhm.
might come to you and say, what is he talking about? Those are people that you value.
Yeah,
To talk to my Black friends, but mostly to know who I was,
yeah.
mostly to have my own sense of me, and that's what you need until you can affect change on a larger scale. You have to, in your daily interactions with those micro and macro aggressions, you have to negotiate you, and you have to know who you are and be really clear about that. I was
Do you,
very clear about that. I didn't have any delusions.
do you think that because we being experiencing this so young helped you to really have to find and know your identity, like at such a young age,
I
experiencing
knew
this?
who I was when I was 4,
Oh,
but
yay!
it just kept being added to. I think to be quite honest. Oh gosh, why am I going there? I think my mother was very much aware of what could befall um, a Black woman who carried herself in a particular way.
Mm,
And if you're objectified and you are, she wanted to proactively work on helping me know that I'm a person of African origin and not to see myself or fool myself or be confused about what I might be. And of course, it helps tremendously that um, I had the opportunity to see other Black people at church. Otherwise, it would have been a very difficult, even more difficult, because the only Black people were seeing were my parents and Uncle Ben and Aunt Jemima.
I hear you. I love that. And I thank you for being so transparent. Thank you for being so
And
transparent.
my sister later. Yeah.
Joan Pierre says, keep searching for the history pieces to educate us. Otherwise, we will never know how to admire your patience. She admires your patience and persistence. Thank you so, so much. And oh, and your daughter said she'll be right back. she's gone.
Okay.
She's gone to a meeting, but she'll be back. So, and you know what? If you are here tuned in and you are missing this and you have to come back in, that's okay because guess what? It's going to be recorded and we are going to have it live and this is live, but you can watch the replay on YouTube and on Facebook. So we're going to continue with this amazing conversation, and I thank you so much, Rosemary. So you're growing up in Toronto. It's a different situation. It's a different era. Racism is alive and well. And how would you say, growing up, how did that shape you and help you to become the woman you are today?
I think I am a very independent person. I want people, but I don't need people.
Mm,
And so I make my own decisions. I commit to things myself. I do them myself. And if I'm lucky enough to have people work with me or support me, great. But if not, I'm still going to do what I have chosen to do.
I love that. So would you say that, what does family mean to you? When you look at it, you look at growing up and your family, your parents. You said you had a sister. How many
Mm.
siblings do you have, Rosemary?
I have one sister.
You have one sister. So what does family mean to you? It could be past, even now, but what does family mean to you?
Um, family changes.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So, family changes over time because when you're a child, family is the nuclear family or whatever you have of that time frame. And then
Yes.
I think family changes again because it becomes the people that you're with, and the people that I spent a lot of time with, not my parents, but my friends when I was in high school, and the crazy and wonderful things that we did. Thank God it was before there were cell phones. But
Yes.
and then I think family later became, my the family I created.
Mhm.
And that's changed again because my kids are on their own.
No.
So
Yeah.
yeah, it's different.
It's always adapting to change. And what would you say now? You grew up in Toronto, learning about your family. Is that and learning about your history? Where did you get this love for history? Like, did you always wanted to do history? Like, where did this passion for history come about?
Well, I think it was always there. You just don't really call it history.
Right.
When I would go and visit relatives or hear the stories of older people or see an artifact. We wouldn't call it an artifact, but
Mhm.
and then there would be a story that would go with it, and always to have been hearing about my connection to the Underground Railroad and what that was and what did that mean, and to also know in the process of the transatlantic slave trade that it would be maybe impossible to know what part of Africa my family would connect to,
Mm.
and so it I guess it was always there, but the reality is that there was no possibility to um, really do much about it, and because there was no training, no programs
Right.
in terms of Black history. And so some of my first Black history training, if you will, came about um, through university students that would come and speak to some of us teenagers and give us information. And going into third world books and crafts and you know accessing it like it was a library before you would finally buy a book. But it was a lot of stuff that we had to pull together ourselves as opposed to what we were fed. And in some ways, I don't know if that was better or not, but there it was materials that were coming in from the States, materials significantly, but also materials that we would come by. Like one book I was just talking about yesterday was They Came Before Columbus.
Mm,
by Dr. Ivan van Sertima, and I think that was one book. I mean, there have been many, but that was one book that I just had a difficulty putting down. It was
mm.
just left me in awe.
So I'm gonna have to get that one now. You're adding to my bookshelf, Rosemary. You know, you touched on something there when you said third world bookstores, that became your library. So that really speaks, and really
Well,
it
it
speaks
shouldn't
to
have
the
been.
it speaks to the importance of having those local bookstores, and especially the black bookstores that carry black authors, black history, because it's such this gem. It's always so hard to find. It's like I have that obsession with books, not just history. Like every time I had to stop myself every time I saw a book with a black person, I would just go buy it because I was just so happy to see a black person on the book. Even though I grew up in Trinidad seeing a lot of black people, and you had leaders, but I always love books. And when you see it, it's just you. So I really can identify with seeing that third world bookstore, and I got to learn about them when I came here to Canada a little better. But you weren't always like, people know a lot about you with the Ontario Black History Society, but you were a volunteer, and this is what was catching me. How did What was the journey to get to the OBHS? Like, what were you doing before OBHS? Because most people just limit you to just the OBHS. There was life before the OBHS.
I had volunteered in a lot of different places,
Mhm.
partly because volunteering was one way to be doing something purposeful. And as a person of African origin, it wasn't always possible to find that you could easily find a job. So I worked with a lot of different populations, also because it was an opportunity for me to determine, not the OBHS, but in terms of some of the other things that I did, to just determine where I might want to seek employment. So I worked with new Canadian populations. I worked with emotionally disturbed children. I worked with developmentally delayed adults. I worked with all as a volunteer, and of course there was the years that I served in a leadership position with my church. So these are all things that I had done during high school and during my first degree. Yeah.
So, how did you become involved in the Ontario Black History Society? Because you became the president in, was it 1993, around
Mhm.
that time? So, how did you become involved with the OBHS?
I had volunteered for the OBHS, and then I was nominated to be on the board. And I'd been on the board, I think, for about, I don't know, 3 years. Um, I admired the OBHS leadership. I had the opportunity to see Dan Hill. I had the opportunity to see Paul Anderson, um, Rella Braithwaite. When I was there, the president was Karis Newton, and there was a my there was a board meeting, and we at in those days board meetings were usually at the OVHS office, which was on Adelaide, and I got there on time for the meeting. It isn't that and they quickly had the election, and I was president, and um, I wasn't planning to be the president. I didn't go into the AGM with the expectation that I would leave being the president. There was someone else that I found out later that um, somebody had hoped that person would be the president, but that
Mm,
person showed up for the meeting an hour late.
okay.
So I guess that there may have been things going on behind the scenes that I didn't know about. But then was the president. And so here I am, president. I'm at home with 3 children. My youngest, I'm still nursing him. And I'm president of a provincial heritage organization that doesn't pay.
Wow.
And so when people talk now about, working from home and having the kids around, that's what I was doing, because it was ultimately easier for me to
Yes.
get a fax. Yes, we had faxes.
Fax
You get a
machines.
fax and a computer. I didn't get a computer until I think 1995, but have a fax and a computer at home, and rather than, you know, pack up all these kids or hope like anything that you can get back in time to pick up the older ones from school
Thank
and
goodness. Yes.
before the baby has to have his nap. It's like it was just easier to work from home. And so the other part of this, I think, that people may not realize is that there were not really that many staff. In
Mm.
fact, there were hardly any. And not too long after I was president, things changed with the province, and they cut our funding.
Wow.
All of the provincial heritage organizations, our funding was cut. In our case, our funding was cut by 90%.
Did you say
Nine, nine,
90?
zero,
Wow.
90.
Wow.
So where we had in the glory days of the OBHS, when Paul Anderson was president, for example, there was a little bit more money, it would seem, and they had, Paul was an unpaid president, and so he could do what he did a little bit more in a part-time capacity.
Mhm.
And Lorraine Hubbard was a full-time executive director, and then later, oh gosh, I'm just blanking on it. And Grace Lawrence was executive director. But then that changed, so that kind of funding and structure was gone. But so by the time I was president, we had somebody in the office, but not really an executive director,
Right.
because we didn't have that kind of money even when I became president. And by the time we were cut by 90%, so
90%.
it was a incredibly, it meant that if we were going to do things, who was going to do them? Because I'm guessing that the community thought, oh, well, they're a provincial heritage organization. They've got everything covered. They've got money. They've got a budget. They've got staff.
No.
So if something was done, then here's another part that people may not appreciate. Most of the people on the board were former members of the Canadian Negro Women's Association. Almost by definition, that means that they were at least a generation older than me. I was the youngest person on the board. They were not going to do talks in schools.
Right.
They were not going to attend any events that were in the evening. And so these are little practical things, but ultimately, while there was a board, the question is who was doing the work.
Wow. Wow.
And
I'm
and
still
when
touched.
when you know how important this is, that there be a Black history, I felt it was important that even if it wasn't perfect, if we lost that particular institution, we would not get it back.
That must have been so hard. And so this makes me go into this question about like Black History Month, the importance of having Black History Month, like why, and maybe, this is even part of the answer is even in some of this, because if you lost that organization, even things like Black History Month would not even be where it is now or happen the way it is. Like, why is it so important? And I think people need to understand, especially on the Canadian end. We talk so much about the American end of things, but why was it so important for the OBHS and yourself to make sure that Black History Month, actually occurred? Give us a little bit of the journey of that and why it's so important.
Well, let me first say that obviously the
Because
OBHS
I'm serious.
didn't invent Black History,
Month. Yeah.
Black History Month, and that's certainly a wonderful legacy that we followed from its inception in the United States with Carter G. Woodson. That it tracked into Canada with the Porters. The first celebration was held at the BME Church in the 1950s, but it was within the Black community,
Right.
hosted by Stanley G. Grizel. And later, when the Ontario Black History Society was formed, people like Daniel G. Hill, Wilson O. Brooks, Joan Kaczmarski, Donna Hill, Lorraine Hubbard, all worked to effect the first official proclamation of February as Black History Month with the City of Toronto. And that went through in 1979.
Okay.
So when I became president in 1993, like I said, I didn't come in with the plan. I just was voted in unexpectedly.
Yes.
But what also happened is that the office manager left.
Oh.
And this was like in October, November. And something happened, and we realized that we were supposed to have requested formally that a Black History Month proclamation be issued.
Okay.
We didn't know. And so I had to really hurry and see what I could do, what favors I could pull in, because we apparently had missed the deadline. We got the proclamation, and it was a hard but useful lesson, because had that not happened, none of the rest might have happened.
Right.
So because that happened, I was petrified. I mean, who wants to lose Black History Month on their watch? And so I decided, you know what? I think that we need to get this proclaimed with the province of Ontario. So I didn't know anything about these things, and I went to our contact person with the ministry, and he helped me secure a proclamation for February's Black History Month with the province of Ontario. Later, I secured what I thought or hoped would be a proclamation from every province in the country. And in the meantime, I had been doing all kinds of Black history presentations, hundreds, if not thousands. I believe I probably, before I stopped doing Black history presentations for the organization, had done at least 2,000.
Wow.
Anyway, and the money that was paid for those would go to the organization to sustain the organization. At any rate, I then went to the federal government, representatives with the federal government, to see about a national, what I thought was a proclamation. Right. And I approached, I believe, the Prime Minister and various members of Parliament. By chance, and this is all by letter, in person, or by phone call. No email, right? No social media.
No social media on your cell phone. Yeah.
No cell phone. And so I happened to be at an event where Jean Augustine was, and I approached her and said, well, have you heard about this? Would you do it? And that was a moment in time when I knew that she would then work on it. And she was the one that corrected me and told me the federal government issues declarations, not proclamations.
Right.
But she was able to do so building on a foundation of interest and anticipation that I had a significant role in creating. So that's why I was connected to her office in terms of the process. That's why I provided her office with all kinds of Black history facts that she then was able to feed to other members of Parliament. That's why when the first celebration of Black History Month in Ottawa took place, I was the only non-elected person on the platform with the Prime Minister and the Black Caucus.
Wow.
And I addressed those that were gathered there. So it was very exciting.
I'm so glad you were able to share that history because not everybody knows the full history of it. And I've always loved the full history of it, but I got a little more tonight. I got a little extra. I got a little we would say in Trinidad a little lanny up, a little extra. I got a little lanny up tonight. I love that. And so I'm so, and I know a lot of Canadians are so grateful for the work that you've done and giving so tirelessly to this. And then we move on because then there's this beautiful thing called emancipation, right? And
Right?
um, and before even I go to emancipation, let's take a little step back. It amazes me, and I'm sure it amazes you that a lot of people still don't recognize or accept that there was slavery in Canada and that there were black people that were enslaved in Canada. How does that like? What do you think about that?
Well, I'm with them. I get it. I was one of those people.
Mm,
As I said, I knew that my ancestors on my mother's side always had known that, and met people, and was in, ancestral homes of people who had come, and I was very clear about the Underground Railroad presence and experience and settlement of people who were related to me and people who were um, here in a similar way, from having the opportunity to tour various cities in
mm,
southern Ontario in particular, from Windsor to Collingwood to London and Brantford and Woodstock. I knew that there were black settlements, and I had visited them and seen the the school, well, not the schools, but well, yes, the schools in Buxton, the dwellings, the property that they had been able to acquire. But what I didn't realize until I was maybe some of those classes that I was taking with those university students when I was in high school, when we were talking Black history, I don't think I knew until then that there had actually been an experience of slavery in this country, because the narrative didn't include that. The narrative included that this was a wonderful place where runaway slaves were encouraged and sometimes led or welcomed with open arms, which was true. But it was also true that there was slavery prior to that that had only ended in 1834. It's also true that there were some other things that continued, some other unfortunate legacies from slavery that we were still living with, which helped to explain so
right.
much of the dichotomy, that
Mhm.
we would experience, the challenges to our lived experience. Mm.
I really thank you for sharing that because it's we can the narrative that they put into books can be you have to it's just like
It's
it's just like cooking.
interpretation. It's
Yes,
what you choose to put in and how
yes,
you choose to frame it. And
mm,
people can be really, white people and black people and purple
yes.
people, they can be really good at collecting the facts, finding the facts, but how people choose to interpret or how fully they include all of the facts, that's where things get interesting.
And I think that's where the research and the study has been. It must be really interesting to do that research and that study to be able to find the nuances and to find the truth in the
We'll
midst of
find the truth, but
all the
sometimes it's
quagmire.
even modern stuff. It isn't even the historical stuff, the incredibly historical stuff. It's what's going on right now. Yeah.
And so
But
that brings us to
Emancipation Day,
emancipation.
yes.
What is emancipation? Because not everybody knows it. So I'm not going to assume that everybody knows it. What is emancipation? Emancipation Day, and why was it so important that you, Rosemary Sadlier, 26 years? My God, my son was born in 1995, so that's why I know the math so well. I was like, 1995. I'm like, okay, no, tell us the story. Tell us the story about emancipation, what it is, and then this journey to this Emancipation Day. I don't know what to call it, declaration, proclamation, whatever.
um, Basically, the journey started in 1995, and I began with others, having, well, not really, but I began having events with at least one other person who had encouraged me to look at Emancipation Day as an important commemoration. And it absolutely was. It wasn't something that had to be debated. It was important and it needed to be commemorated. So a process of having educational events began. I was able to secure an Emancipation Day proclamation with the City of Toronto, and then Metro Toronto, and then the City of Ottawa. That was about 95, 96 in that time frame.
Right.
And then I was able to ultimately see a provincial proclamation that was the first unanimous bill in the province of Ontario, with Ted Arnott, Maria Van Bommel, and Peter Cormus. So all parties came together, which was, I think, phenomenal. But in the meantime, I had been having events. The first one was at, like, some of the events were like in libraries. I think Parkdale Library was one place, but also in Metro Hall, City Hall, and then later at Queen's Park, with all parties coming out to be represented, which to me is a really good thing.
Yes.
Because I think that there are some things that it doesn't matter what your political stripes are, you should just be able to agree on.
Yep, nonpartisan. Yep.
And I have approached this always in a nonpartisan way. But you might be interested to know that I had the support at one point of Preston Manning. I had the support of of Deepak Obhs, who used a private member's bill on 2 occasions, got to the House twice and went to second reading twice because of him. It's not even in the GTA. He was an MP from out west.
Wow.
I then, more recently, with this new government, I tried again. I immediately got in touch with, I moved. So in my old neighborhood, my MP was Arif Virani. I immediately got in touch with him. And he didn't even have an office set up yet. We met in a coffee shop, and the coffee shop was named Enigma. Sometimes I think how appropriate, right? But that was the first thing I challenged him with, that I wanted to see that happen. I've had meetings with Greg Fergus. I mean, just various people. And at one point it was going to, I was able to, this go round, get a 500-person parliamentary petition done.
Wow.
And submitted, because it was going to go into the House. But the plan, I thought, is that it would go into to the House under Greg's auspices, sort of championed by Greg.
Yeah.
But things changed, and instead Senator Wanda Thomas Bernard thought that she could get it through the Senate, and it did get to second reading, which was amazing. But there was a bit of a hold up, and so in the meantime, I'm meeting with, there's technically not party politics happening in the Senate, but sometimes there really is. And I had, I worked with some contacts to find some way to meet with the head of the opposition in the Senate, and I was able to secure his support.
Wow.
And the session ends.
Yes, and then everything starts all over.
And everything starts again. And so it ends up back in the House with Majid Jahari, and you know, COVID interrupt. But anyway, here we are. It was read. Final reading happened last Monday, and the comments that were offered from every party were supportive. And I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. It's like, you know, this is too good to believe. Like, I mean, I've been asking, I've been reaching out. I had been in touch with every party leader and members of every party in strategic areas where there might be significant Black population sometimes, or it's just selections made it for different reasons that meant something to me as I was making those selections. There's at least one person I did not ever hear back from. And that always left me wondering what was going to happen. So when the vote happened, March 24th,
Wow.
I am thinking it should be okay, but there was like it's a timed thing. And so
Yes.
March 24th, if it didn't happen, if the vote didn't take place, it would be gone again and it would have to come up in another cycle somehow with someone. So what happens when they're doing the votes? For the two bills that were previous, they had some glitches. The online voting wasn't working. There were
Oh my
delays. There were
goodness.
delays. And then finally they get to M36 and they start the voting in the House, and there's not too many people in the House, and
Yes.
everybody stood up and they were yay, and I was like, okay, we're off to a good start. Then I had my camera, and I'm ready. I'm going to record. I'm going to record who is going to vote against this. I'm going to have it. All the votes were coming up, yay. And at one point, about halfway through the voting, I realized this is going to pass.
Wow.
And so there, I could feel myself tearing up because it's like I couldn't believe it. Like it's actually going to happen,
I
and
wish
it
I could have
did.
been on the phone with you. I wish I
And
didn't have a meeting that day. I wish I didn't
one,
have a meeting that
oh
day.
my
Oh my
gosh,
God.
one person voted against it, and I
You know, I'm
have
going
a
to research that.
I know exactly who that person is, and I do plan to get in touch to find out what happened. But they corrected their vote. They changed their vote, and so they
Oh,
voted yay. So that's why it's a unanimous vote. But they had originally not voted in support. So I don't know if that was an error.
somebody kicked them under the table.
I think so. But that's all good. It's all good.
God. 26 years. Congratulations. If people don't understand the process of Parliament and when things get prorogued and the bill has to go back again, and it's a cycle and it depends on who's in charge of what.
And there's only so many private members' bills that people want to make available for something like this because they might have other
Other bills
pressing
that they have to put
needs.
forward. Exactly. And so it is really a stringent process. And Sarah goes nail biting. Listen,
I don't bite my nails, but
yeah.
I almost did. I almost started. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at the recording, but I knew how it turned out. I'm so happy for you, and I really want people to get the context of history, how these things happen, because people see it happening and they don't understand how it happened and the journey to making it happen. But 26 years, and as Sarah says, and during the UN decade, yes, Sarah, listen, we have, and this is why we must be resilient. We must continue to push through, like. What made you stay on this for 26 years, Rosemary?
I was hopeful that it would happen, and it needed to happen, and I persisted.
You, I'm going to go to my favorite word. You are supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And if I could sing it, I would sing it to you. And they need to make a song for you. And this leads me to my next thing of the Order of Ontario, because like you need to know whatever the next big thing is, you need that now. Whatever that is, you need that now. What was it like to receive and get the news? Like, where were you when you got the news about the Order of Ontario? Do you remember?
I don't, but I do remember how honored I was, and I do remember how it felt when I walked across the stage to get my medal, and I do remember the reception, and I do remember it was cold and snowy. Of course, it was in January that I think it was presented, but it was. It was really a moment of feeling incredibly special and honored. And I don't think I even could appreciate how special it was because it still remains relatively rare. I had people that would come up to me and kind of they didn't know what it meant. They've never seen one before, so it told me that this was something that most people in Ontario really aren't familiar with, and so I was very honored.
Just talking about it again makes me excited, like I was there. Just saying, I feel like crying. I'm glad I haven't cried yet for the show. I'm going to give you some more flowers. Wendy Jones says blessings. Nadine Williams says congratulations. Maria is like, you're a living legend. Carol is like quite monumental. Sarah is, thank you, Rosemary, for hanging in there, incarnating the in. Listen, girl, you're going with some big words here for my little spirit tonight, of your ancestors, indomitable
Well,
ancestors.
thank you so much, Nicole, for this
Listen,
opportunity to share. It has been great, and I really think that you know um, I've been very lucky to have so many wonderful people like you, being willing to listen and share and to see the value in what I've been trying to do.
listen,
Thank
I've seen it.
you.
I've seen it a long time, and I am honored and blessed that God allowed you into my life, and I was even allowed into your space. And no matter what I do, I always run into you. I always find you. Oh, you're in my life. Nadine Williams says, and you will finally get. I have to say this, and you finally get the kudos for contributing to Canadian history you deserve. And yes, and Star Jacob says you deserve it. Yes, you do. And like Shirley Joseph is sending love because even like in our journeys together, you're now even into the other part of my life, like it's co-op housing. I don't even know how you end up in the co-op housing sector of my life, doing the diversity scholarship awards that you sit and you adjudicate and you pick winners. Like, what has that been like to you for you? Like picking scholarship winners that live in co-op housing.
I
What's that?
love it. I love it. I mean, I have obviously I'm interested in education and to I mean the money doesn't go to me, but to know that the people that are sitting across, well, before COVID, sitting across the table from you are about to be presented with a means of being able to go to university. Um, I think that's phenomenal, and I'm very proud and happy to be part of it. I always, when I see them during the interview, they're so nervous, and then when I see them on stage at the event, they're so happy, and their families are so happy, and I feel that joy, and I also feel um, the pride, that these are because many of these kids or young or adults are racialized, and it means that they will have a little bit more help to achieve their goals.
And I realized I didn't give some context that I was so excited. So Rosemary sits and as one of the, I should say adjudicators would be the right word, for the Co-op Housing Federation of Toronto has a diversity scholarship. So if a young person lives in a co-op in Toronto, they can actually apply for a scholarship. And this was started by the executive director, Tom Clement. And I was back in the day when I was on the board, we were just sitting down reading the essays and stuff. And now it's grown into this $1 million scholarship and given thousands, hundreds of awards to scholarships, sorry, to young people. And now it's expanded into if you are an older, mature student, you can qualify for the award. And now it's actually expanded into part-time studies. So I'm so excited, and I thank you for that piece that you're doing there. And so you're a United Nations kind of woman. You're everywhere. You're like City TV. You're everywhere, you know. And so United Nations, what was it like to present at the United Nations?
It was great. I presented to the UN Rapporteur on Racism at least twice. Um, yeah, twice I think, and I think that it's really helpful because you know that when you are making your points,
Hmm.
that you are being
You.
heard, and this information will be incorporated because that's their job. Will be incorporated into a report that will ultimately influence and impact Canadians, and also speak truth to the position of Canada in the world.
That is so phenomenal because what just hit me was um I feel like this emotional woman today. Maybe I'm having hot flashes. I don't know. Maybe it's menopause. But I just picture that you have been sharing history and making it your mandate to ensure that people know history. And there you were, because to be at the United Nations, you're creating history, and your work is actually documented in a very powerful place, in one of the most powerful places in the world, is the United Nations. And I hope you're taking that in. And I know you're not about I know you're very humble, and I know you're not about getting your accolades, but we're going to give you your flowers tonight. And if I had an award, if I had a victory award, I would craft one. Maybe I need a sponsor. Somebody find me a sponsor. So the first award will go to, yes, the victory award. Okay, we're going to work on that show. Nadine Williams says the Rosemary Sadlier Emancipation Day Scholarship. Woo!
Well, there is a Rosemary Sadler Award that's been issued.
Okay.
By it was presented last August, and it was created by Emancipation Arts in my name, and it was presented live on CBC to Julie Black.
Wow, I didn't know that. See, we're learning fun things today. Did you guys know that? Well, I for heck sure didn't know that. Ooh, everybody's loving this. We're gonna have a few more awards in Rosemary's name. Just saying. Okay, so you're an author too. Tell us about those books that you have. No, before I do that, I forgot something. What is your favorite topic to speak on?
I don't speak very much.
Really, Rosemary? You mentioned 2000 speaks earlier on. And in
Uh,
Black History Month, we can't find you for love nor money. But really and truly, what is your favorite? Without somebody saying, okay, I'm high, what would you love? You can spend all the time just talking on if you had to do presentations. What would that be?
it changes, I think, and it depends on who I'm talking to. I think that sometimes for some audiences they don't need to have the "Did you know there was slavery in Canada?" kind of a talk. Um, but I think other audiences might. Sometimes it might be a historical personality. Um, Often, um, when speaking in schools, not necessarily so much right now because that isn't happening, but in the early days when I was going out, what schools would request is something that would be related to the Underground Railroad.
But you,
So
besides them, what is your favorite thing though, Rosemary? Not what the people want. I want to know what Rosemary loves talking. Now it could be cooking, it could be sewing. I
I don't know what that topic would necessarily be.
Well, I'm going to
Um,
give you some food for thought because we have to build another part of Rosemary's life. You realize you have a whole bunch of people planning your life at the side here in the comments. Like
Good to know.
Nadine is,
Good to know.
Nadine is creating. She wants to have a co-op award for the scholarship in your name. So we're going to talk to Tom. We're going to talk to Tom about that tomorrow. So as an author, tell us about the books you've written and the books you've penned and what they're about.
I think I've written 7 or 8. Um, and One was a bestseller. A Canadian bestseller it means it's a Canadian bestseller, but
Yeah.
it was called The Kids' Book of Black Canadian History, which many people may be aware of. There's a book here on Harriet Tubman.
Right.
I've done a book on Marianne Shadd. I've done a book called Black History, Africa, the Caribbean, and the Americas
I need
with
that book. I don't have that in
with
my
with
library.
other writers. And there's also a teacher's guide that goes with that, and a few others. Yeah.
So for people on live and on the replay, you need to go and search your favorite bookstore, maybe a different book list if you're in Toronto, and go find Rosemary Sadlier's book and order it. And if you're out of town, I'm sure you can go on Amazon and get some of her books. And if not, find a local bookshop and support them. That's my little PSA. And so, have you always had this love of writing, Rosemary? Where did you get this love of writing?
I like language. I like English. I like words, and I like the meaning of words. And I love drama, and I think that church. Yes, this is a very important week for many religions, and this is not my effort to speak to religion
Right.
per se. It's my interest in speaking to what other things you learn in church, and dramatic speech,
Mm,
and in the way you can change a mood or stress importance in how you say something. But anyway, I love language, and I think I had actually thought about getting into journalism. And I, of course, revered books too. So it's another thing. At one point in my life, it's different now a bit. But I I started out as a major in English,
mm,
and switched because I didn't see anybody who looked like me in English, majoring in English. I questioned whether or not I would find work as a journalist if I completed a degree in English. And I think that that was well founded at the time. Representation does matter.
yeah.
And I think that we still have a paucity of Black journalists. Not that we don't have good Black press. I'm not
Mhm.
talking about that. I'm
Yes.
talking about just critical mass of Black journalists in Black press and in mainstream.
So
Yeah.
is this another career path I'm hearing for what's next for Rosemary?
No,
Journalist?
no,
You
because
wouldn't consider some journalism in maybe the realm that you're in?
well, I think it's funny. You do end up doing certain things. You find your way back to them no matter what. And I've written a number of books. I'm working on other things now, and um, writing has, in a particular sense, been a very significant part of much of what I've done.
So when I
Yeah, I'm even asked to edit sometimes. Yeah.
So that's good to know. So Rosemary's available for editing. If you're looking for a writer, I'm just putting it out there. And I'm figuring if I get more time in my life and we get a sponsor, maybe we need to do a history show, maybe the Rosemary Sadler podcast on history, everything history. And she's a journalist. I don't know. Just saying. What's on that bookshelf, Rosemary? Is there, do you have any particular, I know this is a big question because you probably have many, but you know, favorite authors or genre of books that you love reading outside of history? What's that secret book on your bookshelf that everybody should know about? You've got some serious. What's waiting? What are you waiting to read? Longing to read that you haven't read yet? I'll make it easier.
I was given a book for Christmas that I haven't fully read yet, and it's would surprise you, but it's about the raptors.
Mm. Which rap?
It's called We the North.
Oh, We the North. Okay, okay.
Mhm,
Loving that. Um,
mhm.
so you have many accomplishments in your life. You have been very significant. You've done some very significant work. And could you tell the folks listening in a nutshell? But I think about like William Peyton Hubbard and the AME Church side. Why was it important for you to make sure Lincoln Alexander, Kay Livingston, to make sure that these people were recognized and you paid special attention to because you did some significant work in 2016 that many people may not know about. Some people may know, like a Sarah Oyango. I know she knows, but yeah, for the rest of the world.
Um, if we don't work towards affirming and showcasing our own community, who's going to do it?
Mm-hmm.
It has certainly not been done up until this point in time, and so I mean, there have been many um, things that I have done that people may not realize I was behind, but I think that what you're referring to is Lincoln Alexander Day,
Yes.
and I'm still working on another project related to Lincoln Alexander because he was the first Black lieutenant governor in this
Yes.
country.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that we should mark and honor as much as we possibly can. I also did work on having Kay Livingston commemorated as a person of national historic significance. And that Kay Livingston, that process took I believe, 10 years.
Wow.
And so I think, there's people, sometimes people might think that things aren't happening because they're not happening tomorrow.
Mhm,
And I'm not a sprinter.
mhm.
You have to be there for the long
Right,
haul. And
right.
unfortunately or fortunately, some of these things take a really long time, longer than you would expect.
It's such an honor sitting down here talking to you, and such a privilege. There's so much I want to ask you, and I'm trying to coin it down. It's like, okay, we have 15 more minutes, and I thank everybody for listening and tuning in to this awesome time. And actually, should really probably be more than 15 more minutes because we had the little technical delays. What would Rosemary say to your 25-year-old self? Not now that you're 35, but what would you say to your 25-year-old self?
My 25-year-old self,
Yeah.
I don't know, because it's like a lot of things in life. Even if you tell somebody something, it doesn't mean that they can appreciate why you're telling them until they've had some of those experiences, or they can stand back and appreciate why you might be saying it.
Mhm.
um that's a hard one. I mean, if I told my 25-year-old self, don't do that,
Yeah.
I would that have encouraged me to make a point of doing it anyway?
Right. I
So it's hard to know when you give people advice, even if it's coming from the right place. Unsolicited advice is not always welcomed.
I love that. What does legacy mean to you?
It's the sum total of what we do and what we leave and what we can hold up to others as being important.
So what would you want your legacy to be? What would you want to be known for?
Um, I would want people to know that um, in addition to ensuring that there was Black History Month um, proclaimed municipally, provincially, and declared across the country, and in making sure that being the person to make sure that Emancipation Day was commemorated to bring even more attention to our presence in this country. Um, I think I would also want people to know that I was truly committed to a greater good, and the proof of that is the effort that I put into keeping a provincial heritage organization alive when it may have been better for me personally to have just walked
Mm.
away.
And you put so why didn't you walk away?
I couldn't. As I said earlier, um, it's other people in the community. I was building on what they had left us, and so the idea is that you leave things better. You
Then
don't
you found it.
scrap them.
Ooh,
You don't walk away and leave them. And it was a precious legacy, and I felt a moral responsibility not to let it go.
and that is powerful. Shirley Joseph asked, what are some facts in Canadian history you feel the Black community needs to be aware of a lot more, a whole lot more?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's so many. I think one of the things I would really encourage everybody to do is have a look at the intention to apologize to the number 2 battalion, number 2 construction battalion, because I think that that truly is a piece of history that would have been lost. Um, and the fact that the federal government is currently um, 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 looking to apologize, I think
Mm,
means that, you know, with a new lens in 2021, with
mhm,
the UN International Decade for People of African Descent. I think that's a critical piece. You can't sort of say, why aren't more Black people in the Canadian forces, when you can also see that there have been issues with Black Canadians being or attempting to be part of the Canadian forces in the past. So it's so many different pieces. Yeah.
See why we need the podcast? Just saying. Sarah agrees that we need the podcast. We need the history. We need to pull you on a history broadcast. We could bring Sarah on. We could bring Kathy on. I think of all the different people that you would really do well on. But that's just my thinking out loud, Rosemary. I'm just thinking out loud, not meaning to give you more work, but we would need to find a sponsor so that you can get paid. Just saying. If something happened tomorrow, and every piece of information, every post, every video, every article you ever accidentally got deleted, and you could keep one, a message for the world, what would that message be? What would that one thing you would want to make sure that you would hope you saved?
I've already had a computer virus and had to deal with the loss of some really important materials sometimes at certain points, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Would it be something personal or professional, you think?
Well, I know that my photographs, some, like, not necessarily the ones of, the cooking or the ones of the sunrise, but there's certain photos that are very meaningful to me. And of course, I would, unfortunately, I actually have hard copy photos, for old school when you actually had to develop film.
I got it.
But there's other photos of my kids in particular that it would be unfortunate if they went missing.
So I want to give you some more flowers. Khalid says, so inspirational, Rosemary. Learned a lot from your conversation. Hoping to put into action on my Swahili speaking community in Canada. I love
Asante sana.
I see that. And thank you, Shirley. Shirley went and she found the link. So Shirley Joseph, she went and she found the link. So people, if you want the link to the number 2 construction battalion apology or attempt.
Well, it's the intention to apologize. I think that they're going to work on exactly what that apology should
look like.
Yeah.
That's good. And then Sarah says more of us need to know about our historic Black communities disappeared or were disappeared. Africville, Amber Valley, Willow Grove, Hogan's
Well, the Canada Post stamp that I was able to secure for 2021 includes Willow Grove, but my grandmother referred to it as Loch Lomond, and Amber Valley. And communities were Black. Communities were, they didn't disappear, but people left. They left because they were in spaces that were not sustainable and were distant from other types of employment, like non-farming types of employment. They're off, it's quite challenging.
And Sarah, thank you for bringing that up, and thank you, Rosemary. I mean, there's so much to learn. This is why our history is so important. We have nowhere to go if we have nothing to build our history on, build ourselves on from our history. 20 years from now, as we wind down, 20 years from now, looking back on your life, what do you think will matter to you most?
Well, what I hear from listening to things on the radio is that people don't regret the loss of things. They regret the loss of family and people that mean something to them, the relationships. And so I'm probably going to be in that camp. It's already, challenging for me. There are many people who I said happy birthday to somebody. I try to do that often because you might be the only person wishing somebody happy birthday. And the person wrote back, "I remember you when you were a baby." well, the list of those people who remember me when I was a baby is getting shorter and
Sure.
shorter.
Yes.
And one day I will look around and there won't be anybody who ever knew me as a baby, or maybe who even knew me as an adult. And that's just the way life is.
It really is about relationship. And Khalid definitely said he sent his response. Okay, is it Karabusana?
Karubu.
Karubusana, Rosemary. So that was some love for you. And so, what have you learned from this pandemic, during this pandemic, about yourself?
That I can survive. I've spent, I can survive. After I got for myself, I mean, I'm sure we all went through different stages.
Mm-hmm.
But I think when I got past the stage of this isn't really Saturday anymore. This isn't a weekend that's going on for 2 weeks. This is then it's like, okay, I had to start doing something. And so my weight went up because I'd been cooking and eating, and that just couldn't be sustained. I would never get out of the door ever. So I dropped the weight, and I make sure I go for a walk every day. And just learning to appreciate things that maybe I wouldn't have given myself time to appreciate before.
I love that. And so, the name of the show is Victory Speaks. What does victory look like for you?
Um, Many things, but I think victory speaks in a particular sense is that our efforts can make us victorious.
Mm,
Yeah,
I love that. I love that. So, what's next for Rosemary? What's next in this new season of life? What are you up to?
we'll see.
Ah,
I'm open to
outside of the book,
opportunities.
we'll see. So maybe we
Yeah.
might get the podcast. Maybe we might get. We'll see. I love that answer. We'll see. You're so mysterious, Rosemary. We'll see. You sound like a movie star. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Oh,
Is there anything else you would love to say that we haven't touched on before? I know I've taken up so much of your valuable time, and I really appreciate having you on. And if you've enjoyed this conversation with Rosemary and myself, please send her your flowers. Give us the hearts. Give us the thumbs up. But Rosemary, is there anything else you want to share before? If people want to reach you for speaking engagements, if people want to hire you to do, I don't know what they may be thinking of. I know what I'm thinking of. Is there anything you'd like to share?
well, they can reach me. I have a website, and I believe it's about.me/Rosemary Sadler. My email is rosemary.sadler@gmail.com. And I try to reply to my email. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Twitter, and I'm on Facebook. So people can reach me. And yeah.
So if you're looking for Rosemary, you want to hire Rosemary to do a speak, you want to send her some flowers, you want to give her some love, you just want to show her how much you appreciate her, you know how to find her and follow her on Twitter as well. She's on Twitter and Instagram, and she's rocking the Twitter and Instagram, people. She's liking posts and stuff, and she's on LinkedIn. So you have no
Uh,
excuse not to find Dr. Rosemary Sadlier. And Rosemary, I thank you for coming on here. I thank you for time. Your daughter is back. Time.
she knows that I start to wind down. I think she's probably shocked that I'm still awake.
This is
You have
what
to go to bed early if you get up early. I go to bed. I go for
This
my
is what
walks
happens
really
when
early.
girlfriends talk. When you have great conversation, you can stay up all night and just talk about stuff. And so I am just so grateful for you being here. I thank you for everyone tuning in, to the podcast, to the show. Rosemary, you are supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. And if you want to learn, and if you missed part of the conversation tonight, you can catch it on the Victory Speaks YouTube channel, or the Facebook page, which is Victory Speak 77. Now you got to follow me on YouTube. I got to grow. The show is going to move from Facebook, and it's going to move totally onto YouTube. So you got to get accustomed to the program. We're going to be going to YouTube, people. You can tune into the Victory Speaks audio podcast, and that is on Apple, on Spotify. So be sure to follow me there. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. It's Victory Speaks 7. So you can get more to learn more about the people that I'm interviewing, the people that I'm talking about, and the Apple podcast is and the Spotify. It's about the Victory Speaks formula, how you can live a victorious lifestyle. So that's what I talk about on the podcast, which is different to the show. And so please take a chance and take a listen to the podcast. And if you're on Clubhouse, follow me at Victory Speaks. I know Coach Carrie and I are on Clubhouse together. And I leave you with this quote. It's one of my favorite quotes. It's a quote that I coined, and it is love is in the detail. And to my surprise, you see, this is why we have to have conversations. And every day seek to have an inspired conversation with someone you love, someone you meet along the way, or even that you've just met, even if it starts with a smile. I'll share with you a victory testimony as I wind down for the evening. I was on a panel with an amazing doctor, um, and she's going to be on the Victory Speak show in the mental health segment. And we were on a panel together, and I shared one of my favorite quotes. And there I was listening to her being interviewed by the one and only Sophie Gregoire Trudeau last week on mental illness. And she says, I like this quote from Nicole Waldron. I was like, what did she just say? Love is in the details. And she shared my quote. So you never know how your conversation is going to make a difference. You never know what you say, how it's going to impact someone. So be sure to share your truth, your story, your love, because everyone has a story worth sharing. Everyone has something of value to share. I hope you have many victorious moments this week. Write down the victorious moments in your day. Once again, thank you to Dr. Rosemary Sadlier for coming on to the show today. Give her your love, give her your flowers, and we are saying good night. Thank you for tuning in. It was a blast being here with you tonight. Sorry for some of the technical difficulties, but it is what it is. We love you. God bless you. Have a great week. And tune into the show on Wednesday, and you'll find out who's coming up. Take care. And let me make sure there's no other comments before we go. Okay, wait a second. Wait a second, Rosemary. Let me bring you up. Thanks, Rosemary, for all your hard work.
Thank
On
you.
behalf of all of us, congrats again from Joan Pierre, from Shirley Joseph. Thank you for teaching awareness and conversation.
Thank you.
Oh, kudos. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Au revoir. Au revoir, Nadine. And we'll see you. God bless. Take care, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Let your victory speak.